Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Precious Metals Summit is brought to you by Nucor Gold.
Gold is coming back with a vengeance. I'm Paul Harris with Kitco Mining here at the 2024 Precious Metals Summit in Beaver Creek, Colorado. Joining me today to discuss this is mining legend Rob McEwen, Chair and Chief Owner of McEwen Mining. Rob, welcome to Kitco.
Thank you, Paul.
Now, gold hit a record level of over $2,550 an ounce today. But the big question is, are we seeing investors come back into the space?
With the price moving, they'll start coming. At this conference, I think there are more people, not investors, but more people who raise money and more people who need money, but not people who write the checks yet.
What do you think it will take for the people that write the checks to sort of really come back in and start rotating back into the sector?
September is often a cyclical, one of the cyclical highs for gold. And I think with this price movement, it's going to attract more attention. But gold represents a very small portion of most investors' portfolio at the moment. Most of the action has been in the seniors. The intermediates and the juniors haven't enjoyed the same type of price run. But I think with this movement, people are going to go, wasn't gold just $2,000 an ounce? And now it's over $2,500?
It does seem to have had that expansion very, very quickly.
Yes.
And in the same vein, we've seen, year to date, a number of gold companies are up 50, even 100%. So I imagine those kind of gains will start opening people's eyes again about the possibilities, the value that is in the sector.
Well, in the last 2 years, as of last Friday, we were up 183%. We were up 10 times the price of copper, 7 times the Dow Jones, 4 times NASDAQ, 4 times gold, 3 times the GDXJ.
It's not that difficult to see those kind of gains when you sort of put the share price chart up. So are investors seeing these kind of gains and either disbelieving them or ignoring them, or because that's up 180%, that's huge.
180.
Yeah, it's huge.
I think a lot of people have just been focused on sort of the tech space and saying that's where it's going to be, or some of the biochemical areas. They're just suddenly going to look and say, where are these gains coming from? And now with this movement, the real powerful moves come in the juniors, where all of a sudden people are rotating down and going, what hasn't moved? And the metal price underneath is moving. So I'd say this is a time to be stocking up. I think this is an excellent time. I've gone through a number of cycles, and this is one of my favorite times to buy.
Okay. Outside of McEwen Mining, what other things are you looking at or investing in at the moment?
I think when you can find situations with a large resource base, if you can find something that's permitted to develop, because the permitting process takes quite a long time, years. And sometimes some investors have just given up and they've just selling, and you can find some interesting deals because people are anxious to get out of a position.
Okay. Now, another thing that can really drive investors back to the sector is M&A activity, both in terms of creating excitement, creating the premium takeouts, but also as a result of that, you get the recycling of capital.
That's right.
The capital's available to perhaps invest again. And there's been some interesting deals there that perhaps would allow that or facilitate that. I'm thinking of Gold Fields buying Cisco Mining. The Cisco group has developed a lot of different companies, so perhaps they'll be looking to do it again, repeat. Also with AngloGold Ashanti this week announcing the £1.9 billion takeout of Centamin. Again, it could be capital available that will be recycled back into the sector. How important is it to have that recycling when transactions happen?
Well, if someone can get taken out at a premium and then look and say that stock hasn't moved, I think it's really important. I mean, you can look at BHP in Lundin and a $4.4 billion deal in a copper space. Money's going to come out in that, look for other copper stories. that don't appear to have the same valuation.
And so you're there going, we've got a copper project here.
Yes.
There's no shame in asking for money, is there?
No, I mean, if I look at that, I'd say they got taken out at 4.4 billion, and we have a project that has an implied market cap, because it's private right now, of about $1 billion, so a quarter, less than a quarter of the value. And we have site advantages of being lower altitude, larger resource than the two projects that were bought, higher copper grade, closer to infrastructure, lower capex. So I think that's would be a natural place to put some money and ours is, we'll do an IPO next year on that.
Okay, now you've made your name in the gold space as CEO of Goldcorp and other companies, but now towards the in the later part of your career, you may well be remembered for having a red issue through the copper development project of Los Azules, which is in McEwen Copper. Where is McEwen Copper in the development phase? You mentioned you'll be doing the IPO next year. What's the plan there?
Okay. Well, I've never deserted gold, and it's very much in my blood. And when I look at other types of mineral deposits, I try to convert it into a gold equivalent. So our Los Azules project has, in all categories of resources, indicated and inferred 37.6 billion pounds of copper. So I say, all right, how do I convert that to a gold equivalent? I'll take the gold price, divided it by the copper price, and come up with a product, which is the number of pounds of copper that is equal in value to an ounce of gold. So at 37.6 billion pounds, that's equal to a 61 million ounce gold deposit. Our cost is $1.02 projected a pound. So cash cost, $630 an ounce, all in sustaining under 1,000 equivalent, producing 640,000 ounces for 27 years. And that's only mining 40% of what we know. In my book, that's one hell of a gold deposit. So that's how I'm there. Right now, gold is doing a lot of good things. I think for us, in our gold side, we just bought a small company called Timberline. It's in Nevada. It's close to our existing Nevada mine, the Gold Bar mine, and that'll be extending the life of that operation. I can see more of that going on in our own book, but I can see more M&A taking place. The big companies are watching their cash treasuries increase quite dramatically, and they're looking for growth.
Now, you and I, we've known each other for a number of years. We started talking, or I started asking you about McEwen Copper when you reactivated the project a few years ago. You held it for 10 years without doing a lot of work because obviously the market fell away. And throughout that time, you've been talking about the eventual IPO of McEwen Copper. What's taken so long to get there? It seems once in a while you keep pushing back that date.
In 2021, the summer of that, I decided we should separate the copper from the precious metals. And I led the financing with a $40 million investment. We raised 80. And in the last 2 years, we've raised over $400 million privately. And so there were a couple times we thought we were going to go to the public markets and money showed up at the door. We have two global players in there. Rio Tinto's been in 3 times, and they're the second largest mining company in the world. And Stellantis came in twice, and they're the 4th largest car manufacturer in the world. And with these people coming to the door and saying, we want to put money in, there was no need to go to the expense of going to the public market and doing an IPO. We are now looking at the IPO to happen once we got the feasibility study and the environmental permit to build. We are expecting that in the first half of next year. We'll be at that point.
Now, earlier on in the conversation, you mentioned the BHP buying Filo. I think in some ways that came out of the blue. So is there the possibility that you will receive a bid for McEwen Copper and you won't need to take it public? Is that a desirable outcome?
I suppose that, it would depend on the price. We've put a lot of money in here. We think we're significantly undervalued, as does anyone who's running a company. I can show we're very.
In your whole career, have you ever said, yes, I think my company's fully valued or fairly valued?
Why would I say that?
Because it's maybe true.
Never.
Okay.
There are certain times when the market gets overheated, and you might not. We're not in an overheated market right now. So, yeah, that could come along. There's not a lot of. Los Azules is, according to Mining Intelligence, is the 8th largest undeveloped mining company or undeveloped copper deposit in the world. And if you took out the ones that are larger but controlled by majors, it would be the 4th largest. The S&P came out and said in the last 20 years, this is one of the 30 largest discoveries for copper in the world. So it's a rare breed, a rare item. And the majors, you saw BHP trying to buy Anglo for $37 billion, and it was rejected. But the big base metal companies and even the gold companies like Barrick is looking for copper. They're looking for projects that are long life, low cost, that can give them a big presence in the market.
Now, as and when the IPO happens, what sort of position do you want McEwen Mining to keep in the project going forward?
We currently own 48%. Let's say 47%. That's how, I'd like to minimize the dilution. So we'd raise money in the IPO, and then we'd be looking at some debt financing, some project financing. There are development banks, there are offtake agreements, there are a number of equipment suppliers that provide financing. So we want to keep as much as we can for our shareholders.
Okay. I had the privilege to visit Los Azules in March, to do a site visit there, to learn more about how you're planning one of the most sustainable copper development projects in the world. Why are the sustainability aspects of Los Azules so important to you personally and to the company and the project?
Well, as you saw, it's very dramatic landscape. It has a rare beauty to it. Stark, but beautiful. The largest drive in trying to build a mine that is more environmentally sensitive is to help change the perception, the public's perception of mining. There's this legacy, the perception based on the legacy of degrading the environment. The industry as a whole is working very hard to be a good steward of the environment and to be able to reclaim the land. And I think there's one side of the story that's been told to everybody since almost kindergarten up, and that is mining is bad. But the other side of the story that isn't told is what comes out of the ground is critical to our modern civilization. So if we can build a mine, we're looking at a mine that will have, we've got an agreement with YPF, which is a large power provider in Argentina, for 100% renewable energy source, wind, solar, hydro. We'll be emitting 1/3 the carbon of a conventional copper mine. We'll be using 1/4 the water. The mining industry, at least in the Western world, is going through a shrinking workforce that's becoming quite acute. So how do you get a remote mine camp that's attractive to as many people as possible and takes care of their health as well? So light on the environment, attractive for people to work there, and it's what I'd like to see it, I'll describe it, a jewel on the landscape rather than a scar. And we are planning to have a hotel there as well, because I think we want to be as transparent as possible. So the public can look at us and say, this is what they're doing, and they're doing a good job to protect it. And I think it's really important to do that, to protect the environment.
Absolutely. Now, is there a possibility, a danger, if you like, that if you do an IPO, if somebody else buys the project, that they'll go, thanks, Rob, we love your plans, we're going to do our own thing, and discard a lot of the good work and the good vision you've had there?
I suppose that's a possibility, Paul. I think they'd be sacrificing a lot. What we're putting forward, I think, could be one of the models for a mine of the future, or mines of the future. And I think the industry just has to go that way to gain public acceptance.
Absolutely. Now, you talked a little bit about some of the things you're doing at McEwen Mining. With McEwen Mining, you're looking to create another big gold producer. I think in the past you were talking about you wanted to be the gold company on the, I think, Fortune 500 or something of that nature. That's proven to be more challenging than perhaps you anticipated.
Absolutely.
And the company's been in the penalty box for the last 3 or 4 years. It does seem, though, that you're starting to turn a corner and have brighter days ahead. How quickly are you turning that corner? How quickly do you think you'll be accelerating into better days?
From 2019 to 22, we were on a downward slope. I call it the road to hell. It erased hundreds of billions of dollars. And I have 225 million invested my cost base. So I could feel the pain, my shareholders could feel the pain. As you said, we're turning around, the costs have stabilized, the costs have come down. We had a couple of things. When I look back and I was thinking they were unique and sort of funny, but not funny at all. But at one place, in Timmins, we had a contractor crushing all our ore, and he had this 4-story crushing facility. And it was in the winter. There was ore moving around on conveyor belts, and it wasn't gripping the ore properly. So the contractor's employees said, well, we should make the conveyor belts more pliable. So they went and put a big blowtorch underneath one of the conveyor belts, and then they went off to dinner. When they came back, the whole structure was ablaze, and so there was 7 weeks we didn't have any income. Then we go to Nevada. We're in the high plains, sort of desert, and there's a heavy snowfall and a very rapid spring runoff, and there's a flood. And the only way to get to our mine was either by boat or helicopter in the desert. You're going, how does this happen? But it's not an excuse that really works really well in the market. You're supposed to anticipate floods and fires. But now we seem to be on a solid footing. We just bought a small company in Nevada that has property near our Nevada operations, and that'll extend the life of that operation. In Timmins, we're driving a ramp down to an area we're going to start development on. And we'll be leaving our current mining area, and it has a number of advantages. We would drive 30 kilometers with our ore to our mill. So there was a cost of transport. There was a stream, and I hate streams and royalties with a passion because they've destroyed the industry. But we were selling gold to a streamer, giving it to him at $600 an ounce, 8% of our production. That came when I bought the company. Some fool did it before. And the ore is softer, so we can process more through the mill. So that's exciting because that'll allow us to increase production. And we expect by 2028 we could be up to from 130 to 140,000 ounces of production this year to 200,000 ounces a year in 2028.
Earlier in our conversation today, you spoke about how it's a great moment in time to buy.
Yes.
You spoke a little bit about what you're investing in personally, but in terms of McEwen Mining, are there things you're potentially looking to bring into McEwen Mining in Nevada, in Canada, elsewhere, or are you in a position to do that yet?
Our cash flow has increased. We were 41 million at the end of the second quarter in our treasury. Our debt had been reduced from 65 to 40 million. Our earnings in 22 weren't earnings. There was a loss of 81 million, and that was due to consolidating all the expenses at our copper project. In 23, December 23, we had 55 million in net income. So it's improving. Cash flow is coming. We are spending heavily on exploration in Timmins, in Nevada, a little bit less going on in Argentina and in our gold-silver joint venture down there. But I am, yes, as you say, I think this is an opportune time to be looking the junior sector. There's some companies with really good drill holes. They've developed a resource, and the market's not paying any attention or very little attention to them. And this is a time to say we should be gathering a few of those to build our resource base and our ultimate production base.
So something on the horizon?
Always looking.
Okay, well, let's step outside of McEwen Mining. We've spoken about M&A. If you could bring two companies together, two projects together, who would they be?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I haven't thought about it. Let me think about it in our next interview, I'll tell you.
Fair enough. Now, I want to finish our conversation today talking about photography. It may sound a weird thing to ask a mining executive, but in your gold court days, there's a famous photograph of you sitting on a pile of, I believe it's 250 gold ingots. Today, they're probably worth about $250 million. I think at the time they were worth $68 million, according to the caption on the photograph. It's an iconic image. Earlier this year, a photograph of you was taken in Argentina with Michael Medding, your general manager at McEwen Copper, with Argentina's new president, Javier Milei. It's got to be one of the most rock and roll photographs of mining executives and a country president ever taken. Both images capture a zeitgeist of a moment in your career. What would you like your next photograph to be of?
Sitting on the 400 million pounds of copper we're going to be producing per year at Los Azules.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to seeing that photograph as and when that is taken. Rob McEwen, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Paul. Do you want to hear the beer?
Go on then.
Okay. Now, you got to be prepared for this.
Let me sitting here like this.
So I walked down, and I was concerned about encountering a bear today. So this is a bear horn, a warning horn. And I'll just press it.
Gold to the new high. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you, Paul.
We have plenty more to come from the 2024 Precious Metal Summit in Beaver Creek. Stay tuned, hit that subscribe button to watch all the videos. I'm Paul Harris, and this is Kitco Mining.
Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Precious Metals Summit is brought to you by Nucor Gold.